Hello. Let's see here. Bibles over. Okay. Yesterday we were going to try and finish up chapter 33 and make it into chapter 34. We succeeded to get one verse done. But today, I am hopeful that we will have more than one verse. So, Exodus 33, starting in verse 17, which is actually the beginning of a paragraph. So maybe that's why we got tripped up last time, because we tried to take the last sentence of a paragraph. Good morning, all you guys. All right. So the Lord said to Moses, I will also do this thing that you have spoken, for you have found grace in my sight, and I know you by name. And this is a kind of funny little fact, just, a little nugget for Christians to remember. We don't know Moses' real name. Remember, Pharaoh's daughter pulls him out of the river and names him Moses because he came out of the river. But that was his Egyptian given name. And he was months old when they sent him down that river. So Moses had a Hebrew name that's just totally silent in the Bible. God knew it, though. So verse 18, he said, please show me your glory. And that's kind of what our text centers on today, is that he wants to see his glory. And there's something that just speaks to the heart of Moses there. And it's something that I think you see it glimmer in the eyes of those who know the Lord and have sensed his nearness, have approached his presence. This idea of I just want to see your glory. You know, there's a lot of times where we want God to fix our problems. We want strength to face the day. We want help, provision, and yet there's a place he'll take you to where all those things seem to pale in comparison to I just want to see you, God. I want to see your glory. And everything else seems to fade away in comparison to his light. The God who dwells in inapproachable light, we read, right? That to see that and to be close to that. And so God makes a deal with him. Verse 19, it says, I will make all my goodness pass before you, and I will proclaim the name of the Lord before you. I will be gracious to whom I will be gracious, and I will have compassion on whom I have compassion. But he said, you cannot see my face, for no man shall see me and live. And the Lord said, here is a place by me, and you shall stand on the rock. So it shall be, while my glory passes by, that I will put you in the cleft of the rock, and I will cover you with my hand, and I will pass by. Then I will take away my hand, and you shall see my back, but my face shall not be seen. So here we go. It's like he's setting it all up. What's going to happen here, right? And so this is it. Like, it's going to happen. That's why I said this starting in verse 17, it might have been a better starting place for chapter 34. And as we should know, chapters were not in the original book of Exodus. They didn't, Moses didn't stop and write a 34 as he was going. Chapters didn't get, chapters are in the 15th century? And then the verses got added in the 16th century, AD, thousands of years later. So here we go. So I think this kind of wraps it. He says, and the Lord said to Moses, now cut two tablets of stone like the first ones, and I will write on these tablets the words which were in the first tablets which you broke. Be ready in the morning, come up to the Mount Sinai, present yourself on top of the mountain, and no man shall come with you, and let not man be seen throughout the mountain, neither flocks nor herds before that mountain. So he cut the tablets of stones like the first ones. He arose early in the morning. He went up to Mount Sinai like the Lord had commanded him, with the two tablets of stone in his hands. I'm just kind of quickly getting to the big point. Verse 5, and the Lord descended in the cloud and stood with him there and proclaimed the name of the Lord. And again, this literally would read the name of Yahweh or Jehovah. It was, the slightly older fashioned interpretation. Yahweh is what many scholars believe might be more accurate as we just understand ancient Hebrew. we have consonants, we don't have vowels. So that's where that difference is. And the Lord passed before him and proclaimed, the Lord, Yahweh, Yahweh, God, merciful and gracious, long suffering and abounding in goodness and truth, keeping mercy for thousands, forgiving iniquity and transgressions and sin, by no means clearing the guilty, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children and the children's children to the third and fourth generation. So Moses made haste and bowed his head toward the earth and worshipped. And then he said, If now I have found grace in your sight, O Lord, let my Lord, I pray, go among us, even though we are a stiff-necked people, and pardon our iniquity and our sin, and take us as your inheritance. I'll probably back up and address a little bit of the stuff in those verses. I think in verse 7 there, talking about the keeping mercy for thousands, but then visiting the iniquity upon the fathers of the fathers upon the children. That'll maybe be a talk for Monday, if I remember. But focusing mostly on just, today, merciful, gracious, long-suffering, abounding in goodness and truth, keeping mercy for thousands. And I will say today, the rabbis taught that was thousands of generations is what that meant. Because it's like, what am I looking for here? An adjective without a noun, right? Like thousands is actually describing thousands of what? It's dot, dot, dot. The generations don't come till the end of the verse. And so there's nothing else to attach it to other than generations there at the end of the verse. So he keeps mercy for thousands of generations. Now, that's all Moses wanted, was to see God. And so, it describes this concept. What happened is that he was there, and then someone put his hand over his eyes. And some people say, was this Jesus? Is this a physical? Because something had to actually go there to close his eyes, right? Can we actually see the entire Trinity in this moment? But he passes by. And the interesting is, like, you'll see my back. That sounds kind of funny. And sometimes this is translational stuff. And the idea is more so, it's like you'll see his wake. As the boat goes by, what you see left behind of the boat, the wake and the waves moving in that triangular formation, that's what you get to see, Moses. I'll pass by you. And then you get to see my fading glory. Just the fact that I was here, there's like, whoa, look at that. The evidence that God had just walked past me and I missed it. Something fascinating, and I've made this comment a few times, that I've not studied it and I still haven't studied it. So I need to maybe do a study on this someday. But there's some of these studies where you have to like go through the whole Bible and try and piece it all together. But I heard James MacDonald on a pretty old Q&A. It was like a roundtable discussion. And he made the comment, which spurred my thought to want to go and study it. He says that even in the book of Revelation, he goes, he said, I don't know if we will ever see the face of God the Father. Because all we ever seem to see, these people who've been to the heavenly scene and in the visions in Revelation and Isaiah and everything else, it's like God on the throne and inapproachable light, to where it's like his presence is there and so overwhelming. And yet what we always see is the Son sitting at the right hand of the Father, and him we do see, and him he is described. And so it was just this fascinating comment he made. It's like, I don't know if we'll actually ever see God the Father like face on, because the glory is just so overwhelming. And yet there's something about that too. It's shouldn't be a letdown, because it's that idea of almost like what you will be able to see will be so overwhelmingly powerful. It's like, it's more than enough. It's like, whoa. And so that's kind of why with Moses here, he's like, I'm going to pass by you. He's still a man in his fleshly body on the earth. He's like, I'm going to pass by you and you're going to see that glory. But just backing all the way up to the beginning, if I found grace in your sight and I know you by name, right? That's what God says. You found grace in my sight. He says, okay, then show me your glory. And that really should be the prayer of all believers. God, I do want help in my marriage. I do want my children to be healthy and safe. And I do want to see sinners get saved. And I do want to see revival. And I do, but yeah, at the end of the day, my deepest desire is just to see your glory. God, have your presence be real in my life, be tangible in my life. And for any of us who've had experiences, for whatever way and however it played out, where somehow God moved in a way where it's like that was tangible. Quite often, I think people, at least I think, I hope, like sometimes on like a Sunday night or some service, it's like that was special, that was different. Like felt like God was there with us, and that was great. And it's like, and it's those experiences, that quite often, alone in prayer is where you're going to get them. I'd say for me, it's probably those two places. It's alone in prayer, or it's at an afterglow. And whether it's an afterglow at a men's retreat or a conference or the ones we do on Sunday nights, but those are the times where it's like, yeah, God's presence is there. There's something beautiful about that. And there's something definitely almost addictive where once you experience it, it's like, I want to experience that again. So I'm going to keep showing up and I want to experience God's presence. So keep seeking it, church. Seek God's presence. Seek his face. All right. You guys take care.